Last season, the Memphis Grizzlies had to deal with something that's probably the toughest thing any NBA franchise could go through, and that's a season ending injury to your best player. And in this case, I think we can all come to an agreement that Ja Morant is the best player on the Memphis Grizzlies. And last year was just a very tough year for him. We look at how that year started. He had to serve the 25-game suspension, and then 9 games after that, 9 games into his season, he suffers a season-ending injury. So I think that right there alone, the mental toughness, the emotional toughness of a situation like that, I think that is very tough on Ja Morant, but also it's tough on the coaches, it's tough on his teammates, and it's tough on the fan base, because when you're a fan of a basketball team and you're a fan of these players, you're connected to them in that type of way. So dealing with an injury or dealing with that suspension and then dealing with that type of injury right afterwards, I know that's something that's very, very tough to deal with. And when it comes to Ja Morant, there's not many teams in the NBA that has a player that's as good and as impactful as Ja Morant on the basketball court. But another way that I think Ja Morant is so special, and this is something that has been overlooked, since we know what Ja Morant has been through over the last couple of years. We're not going to bring up any of that stuff, but I think that those things that transpire, it's overlooked of how great he is to the Memphis Grizzlies and to his teammates from an off the court perspective, the culture that he's created in the locker room, the swagger that he's created for the Memphis Grizzlies, the energy that they play with and carry themselves out on the basketball court. A lot of that has to do with Ja Morant. So I think him going through those tough times, going through that suspension and then the injury, it kind of just put this negative effect on the Memphis Grizzlies. And then we also look at Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane dealt with injuries a lot last season, missing over 50% of the year for the Memphis Grizzlies. So a very tough year for this team, but when things like this happen, you can really turn it into a silver lining, because when you're missing something like Ja Morant, production-wise on the basketball court, all the points he accounts for, all the rebounds he accounts for, all the attention he accounts for, and all the assists he accounts for, when that happens, it forces everybody else in the organization to be better. It forces the general managers to be better when it comes to making trades and picking up more players so we can be more sufficient when we don't have our best guys available. It forces the coach to be better. It forces Coach Taylor Jenkins to get his guys in better position, come up with better game plans so we can be more competitive while Ja Morant is not playing and while Desmond Bane is not playing. And then also, most importantly, it forces the players out on the basketball court to step up. Other guys are going to have to start scoring the basketball more, start rebounding more, start assisting more. So, and I think we did see a lot of that with the Memphis Grizzlies last year. We saw some games late in the season, middle of the season, when we knew there was going to be no more Ja Morant, where they had some competitive games, where they had some of their developmental pieces showing some promise. So no matter where there is, a lot of darkness, you can always find some light. So I thought the Memphis Grizzlies, they did that last season, and we look at them this year. They've been kind of sort of in the same situation, but I feel like what they've gone through last year, they have learned a lot. And of course, the circumstances are a little bit different, because that Ja Morant is back, and whenever he's back, you have a chance to do something special. And I'm a firm believer. I know I don't talk about Ja Morant on the channel that often, but I am a firm believer of how good he is. I think he's not just one of the best point guards in the NBA, but one of the best players in the NBA. And we're gonna jump into that in a second. But first, I want to continue to talk about the team success of the Memphis Grizzlies. And coming into this season, they have been nowhere near the circumstances that they would like to be under. When we look at the health of this team so far, Ja Morant, he's only played 13 out of the Memphis Grizzlies are 15-8. That's 23. So he's only played 13 out of the 23 games so far this season. Desmond Bane has only played 16 games out of the 23 games so far this season. Marcus Smart has missed a huge chunk of games. Zach Edey is now out for the Memphis Grizzlies. So they've had they've had key injuries to guys all over the place. And this is what I was saying, where the Memphis Grizzlies last year, they could find that silver lining to where when these things happen, they're already accustomed to it, they're already prepared to it, and they prepared for it, and they already know what they need to do to be able to be successful when these things happen. And that's what we've seen so far this season, despite these injuries, despite these guys not being available. And also when Ja Morant does play, I don't think he's still been approved unless it's happened recently. He might have just started going over 30 minutes per game, but for majority of this season, he was only playing around 25, 28 minutes per game, which is super low for a player of his caliber. But looking at the Memphis Grizzlies so far this season, they've been playing amazing. We look at their team record, they're 15-8. They've won 8 out of their last 10 games. They're currently on a 1-game winning streak, and they're sitting at 4th place in a very, very talented Western Conference. And we look at how these guys are performing as a team. They've been amazing on both sides of the ball. Defensively, this is something that the Memphis Grizzlies, this organization, has always specialized in since they've had Tony Allen, since they had Zach Randolph, since they had Mike Conley, and now they have Jaren Jackson Jr., now they have Marcus Smart, they have Desmond Bane, and they have all the Rough Riders on this team. Santi Aldama, he likes to get very physical. Brandon Clark is a very physical basketball player. Right now, they're sitting at 5th place in the NBA in defensive rating, and when it comes to offensive rating, they're sitting at 4th place, and in points per game in the NBA, they're sitting at 2nd place. And all of these numbers that I'm hearing about the Memphis Grizzlies, and when we look at their personnel, we look at their roster, these numbers make 100% sense to me. When we look at them on the defensive side of the ball, these guys have 2 defensive player of the years at their disposal. Marcus Smart, who, like we said, he hasn't even really been that available so far for the Memphis Grizzlies, and they still have a top 4 defense in the NBA. And then also the other defensive player of the year on this team is Jaren Jackson Jr. And we all know what he's capable of on the defensive side of the ball. There's nothing he can't do. He can play in the drop coverage, he can switch, he can hedge and recover, and then he's an outstanding rim protector. Jaren Jackson Jr. lights out on the defensive side of the ball. And then around these 2 guys, you have a bunch of other guys that's disciplined, that can communicate, and do not mind getting after it on the defensive side of the ball. So, and then we look at them offensively. There's not one aspect on the offensive side of the ball that the Memphis Grizzlies can attack you with. We just look at Ja Morant alone, what he brings to the game of basketball. One of those players that's one of those rare players that can score 25 points per game while also dishing out 8 assists. He has done that already in his career, average 25 points per game and dish out 8 assists while doing it. That is so dominant. And then we look at all the things all the different ways he can score the ball in the 2-man game, in isolation, in transition. And then also they have a guy in Jaren Jackson Jr. where they can play through the post, where they can get matchups, play through the post, get whatever looks they like through those actions. And then they have 3-point shooters. They have Desmond Bane on this team, one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. And we all know his game doesn't stop there. Since he's gotten in the NBA, he's become a much better ball handler, a much better shot creator, and a much better player in pick and roll situations. He can also set up his teammates. So the Memphis Grizzlies, they're really good on both the offensive and the defensive side of the ball. And what's so special about this team, and I think we have to give huge props to Coach Taylor Jenkins, because like we said, when we see the other teams in similar situations with their best players being unavailable to start the season, we've seen them dig themselves in a pretty deep hole that's hard to get out of. But that hasn't been the case for the Memphis Grizzlies, and that's why I've been saying that this team has been nowhere close to fully unleashing on their opponents. Now we look at a team that is this good, right? A team that is this good, 4th place in the Western Conference, 8 out of their last 10 games with a record of 15-8. They don't have a single player on this team that's averaging over 30 minutes per game. The highest minutes per game is Jaren Jackson Jr., and he's playing 28 minutes per game. So I don't even know if there's going to come in, because these guys have proved that they can shoulder more of a load. The role players scoring the basketball. We look at all these guys that are in double digits. We look at the rookie, 2nd round draft pick. This is what I talk about. When the GMs and the general managers and the scouts, when they step their game up. Jalen Wells, he's a second round draft pick, averaging 12 points as a rookie, and he's shooting 45% from the field while also knocking down 38% of his three-pointers. So that's a crazy find to find in the second round. He played really well in the summer league, earned himself a contract, and now he's playing a very vital role for the Memphis Grizzlies. And another guy I like, and in terms of the role players for the Memphis Grizzlies, I like Santi Aldama. He's really good, whether he's starting, coming off the bench. He makes a lot of plays that swing the momentum in the favor of the Memphis Grizzlies, whether it's catching a lob, getting a putback, getting an offensive rebound, diving for loose balls. He's a really good player for the Memphis Grizzlies. Zach Edey was able to average 10 plus points per game before he was sidelined with an injury. So it's just guys contributing all over the place. Scottie Pippen Jr. has been big time, while Ja Morant has been out nursing those injuries that he's dealing with. That has been keeping him out, it seems like, almost every other game. But they've had a steady hand at point guard whenever Ja Morant doesn't play. Scottie Pippen Jr. is averaging 12 points per game while also dishing out 6 assists. So the Memphis Grizzlies, they've just been their role players have just been really, really good so far this season. And this is an amazing thing because it allows you to get healthy, and when guys have those nagging injuries, you can let them heal those and not risk them injuring it even further, because you have guys that are contributing while these best players are hurt. So the Memphis Grizzlies, I think they should be a very confident team right now, because when you're in a situation like this, when nobody's playing over 30 minutes a game, but you're fourth place in the Western Conference, that actually says a lot. So I'm definitely going to be keeping a closer eye on them as the season goes on. And also, I also have to give a lot of props for Jaren Jackson Jr. and the strides that he's making on the offensive side of the ball. He's actually leading the Memphis Grizzlies in scoring, 21 points per game. He was another player that I talked about when things like that happen with injuries to guys like like Desmond Bane and Ja Morant. And Jaren Jackson, he played 66 games last year. He missed almost 20, but that isn't that crazy. But he was able to know what it feels like to have to be able to take on more of a scoring load, and it worked out because he averaged his career high in points, averaging 20 points per game for the first time in his career, averaging 22 and a half. So that was good, and he's been able to take what he learned from last season and carry it into this season. So the Memphis Grizzlies, they're in a great situation right now. That's what I want to talk about with you guys today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below if you agree or disagree, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.